It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mainz and Dutts. I'm your host, Mainz, and my colleague, a man who is Batman on the t-shirt, but Clark Kent in the face, is Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
It's not polite to pick on people just because they wear glasses.
I'm not picking on you. I'm just highlighting that, in the DC universe, you'd be Batman as your t-shirt is Batman, but your glasses would suggest that you are Clark Kent.
I am the knight. That's all I'll say.
That's all you'll say, indeed. For those who are unaware of Neil's full appearance, he does not, I repeat, does not look like Henry Cavill. This week, we are actually, according to Neil, who's the statistician of the group, 1 week away from our 10th anniversary, which is unbelievable if you think about it. And next week we'll get onto that. But in this week's show, it's week 6 of the NFL, and we're going to try and decide if teams are good or bad, regardless of record. We're going to talk game of the week, and then I'm going to trade a good player from a bad team to a good team to save them, and we'll see how we get on. And then obviously we've got Fancy Darling, Fancy Loser, and Fancy Predictions bound to go wrong. And boy, did these fancy predictions go wrong last week.
Well, in my defence, the team who I tried for mine did their bloody best.
They did. Fair.
And I thank them for their service.
Exactly right, exactly. But without further ado, let's get on with the show and let's dive into the main event.
Time now for the main event.
So, 5 weeks in, I've watched a lot of NFL. I feel like I've watched more this year than possibly ever before. A lot of multi-TV, multi-screen on live and a bit later on. And if you just looked at standings, you would probably be able to define. You would think that you'd be able to define who is good and who is not. There's a couple of issues with that. Everyone seems to be 2-3 or 3-2, and also, I'm pretty sure teams with bad records are good and teams with good records are bad. So, what I thought, Neil, is I've got 6 teams here, and I'm interested in your thoughts on whether this team is good or bad.
Okay.
In your opinion, is this on the good or bad? I'm comfortable if we say this is a good bad team or a bad good team, but I'm just interested in your opinion on these teams. So the first team is the New England Patriots, who put a absolute beatdown on the Detroit Lions on Sunday. I spoke to Taib on the Touchdown Review and queried whether Jared Goff has nightmares about Bill Belichick and what Bill Belichick has done. What Jared Goff has done to Bill Belichick to annoy him so badly that he beats him like a ginger stepchild. But that's not what we're talking about here. I'm interested in where you are on the New England Patriots.
I don't think they're very good at all. I think they're fortunate in that the games they've won, they've been able to impose their limited offensive will. Offensively, I just don't think they're very good at all. They don't have the receiving talent to win one-on-ones and get open to make life easy for either the first-round pick quarterback from last year or their late-round pick who's going to Brady Bledsoe, Mac Jones. So if they can stop another team scoring points and then they can run the ball to their heart's content, then the Patriots are very happy. It not being 1977, I'm not sure how many chances they're going to get to do that, whether it's Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, or Drew Bledsoe back there. So, no, I don't think they're good.
It's interesting, right? Because I tend to agree with you, although you're always nervous when you say that kind of thing when it relates to the New England Patriots, because at any moment, they would win again. They have a strange 2001 vibe. I'm hoping that, if they come up against a good team that we kind of define as a good team, that they will struggle. I think they played a couple of good teams so far this season, and they've lost. The teams they are beaten, I think we would have in the bad category. Even the Lions, they're fun. I don't think anyone would say they were good. They're interesting, but they're not good.
I think with the Lions, we're laughing at them, not with them. I think this is the problem.
What I would say is, though, if I was to say they're a good team or a bad team, it's all about record. And their next 5 games are Browns, Bears, Jets, Colts, Jets. That, you could be good, you could be bad, but you could also win 5 games on the run against garbage teams. I think they are a good bad team rather than a bad good team. So I think most people would look at that roster and skill positions especially and go, this ain't good. But they have a good coach and they are tremendously usually disciplined, and therefore I think they are a good bad team.
But this is the problem. You say they've got a good coach. They have a good head coach. But you cannot tell me that the offensive situation is conducive to winning football in 2022 when your offensive coaches are Matt Patricia, who's an arse clown, and Joe Judge, who's an idiot.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. However, they're winning games with those two buffoons. I'm just like, I know that it should be physically impossible for Bill Belichick to be able to run everything at exactly the same time. But right now he seems to be doing it because I'm not having Matt Patricia or Joe Judge in any way. Let's stay in the AFC East. Where do you stand on the Miami Dolphins?
I think it's too difficult for me to answer what the Dolphins are because they've had games where Tua has looked competent. They've had games where Tua has looked like a passenger. And they've had games without Tua. So in the space of 5 weeks, we've had the full spectrum of the Miami Dolphins without anyone actually knowing what the hell they are. Defensively, they do some nice things. They sort of quite creative, but then you watch them, they got the doors blown off by the Jets, and you can't have that. I encourage everyone to subscribe and join the Quarterback School Patreon community for the game breakdowns that JT O'Sullivan does. And I've literally just watched Zach Wilson's from the week just gone against the Dolphins, and the Jets left an awful lot of plays on the table. And you're like, well, you could have absolutely annihilated this team, Jacksonville v Marino style, but you didn't. I mean, it was still a fairly comprehensive win, so I don't know what the Dolphins are. I can't answer whether they're good or not.
I think they have talent. I think they seem to have a good coach. I think they're not the team that we saw in the first couple of weeks. I think they caught Buffalo at a good time. And what I would say again, in the world of, you are what your record says you are. They play the Vikings this week, who I'm not fully convinced by, although they're not on this list. Then they've got Steelers, Lions, Bears, Browns, Texans. So they're going to rack up some wins, but I do see them now in the same bucket as the New England Patriots in a good, bad team. So they may win either the Patriots or the Dolphins, I think. They're going to win 9 or 10 games. And I don't think either of them are especially good, but that doesn't mean you can't win games. AFC North, Neil. Cincinnati Bengals, where do you stand?
If I'm being generous, I will say that it took the Kansas City Chiefs roughly half a season for their completely reconstructed offensive line to gel and actually look like a functioning unit. So maybe it can still happen for the Bengals. If I'm being uncharitable, it seems to be that they're asking Joe Burrow to play hero ball, and it's not being helped by the fact that they're giving Joe Mixon a shit ton of opportunities, and he's doing absolutely bugger all with them. And by bugger all, I know it's a nebulous term and it's hard to quantify, so allow me to make this simpler. Every running back in the league would do better than Joe Mixon right now, so that's how we can quantify it. I just think that defensively they're trying to get by smoke and mirrors. Got one good, really good pass rusher in Troy Hendrickson. The rest of them don't seem to be doing as much, and they're built for a team that we saw last year wants to sit back and let Burrow go deep, but the offensive line still isn't letting him do it. So we're seeing him get into bad habits. So I would have to say, at the moment, I think they're a bad team, but they have the capacity and the potential to be a good team.
The thought experiment on this to define whether they're a good team or a bad team for me is, what would happen if Bill Belichick was the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals? They'd win 12 games. I think that's undeniable. So, by that definition, they're a bad good team, and they're a bad good team because they are poorly coached on offense. And overall, I think they're really well coached on defense, and you defined it as smoke and mirrors, but that smoke and mirrors situation's been happening for the second half of last season and the playoffs and the start of this. I think Zach Taylor is a really bad head coach, and that allows you to be in a situation where Joe Burrow does bad things. And he is doing bad things, I believe. And they really need to sort that out pretty quickly.
I mean, if you look in terms of DVOA, the Football Outsiders efficiency stat. Let me just look at this. They're not as low as I thought. The Bengals are, in terms of total DVOA, 16th. So literally slap bang middle of the pack. So I think they're the ultimate poster children for this whole experiment.
Absolutely. Green Bay Packers, Neil. Where do you stand on the Green Bay Packers?
They're shite. Their defense is a shambles. Number 59, Devondre Campbell, does not have a clue what he's doing in coverage. They've never met a crosser they didn't want to leave wide ass open from any part of the field from any team, and their offense is slow and it's boring. So they're paper tigers for me. And they're not even tigers. They're paper seals.
If there's one team in the league that people overrated the skill, talent, and their ability, it's probably the Green Bay Packers. I think a lot of people saw them as one of the most talented defenses in the league. They thought they'd lost Devontae Adams, but they had Aaron Rodgers, so it'd be okay. It's not okay. It's just not okay. And I see a lot of situations where people say that Aaron Rodgers is the greatest regular season quarterback of all time. I think they just make up statistics to kind of say that kind of thing, right? I am not having that other quarterbacks of his ilk in that list would not be able to move the ball better than Aaron Rodgers does with the limited amount of talent they have. I'm just not having it. Like, I'm not saying that talent is good. I'm not, right? But, sorry, he has to take more responsibility and more accountability for how this offense moves down the field, and right now he's not.
See, it always comes down with Rodgers, all these wonderful gifts that he has, and the throws that Patrick Mahomes makes now. That Aaron Rodgers has done that for years. Yeah, that's lovely, but ultimately, Father Time, other than for Tom Brady, seems to be undefeated. And if people class, that if people want to say Aaron Rodgers is the best regular season quarterback of all time, well, I'm looking this up. I'm waiting for the damn thing to load, and then we can go into this. Tom Brady in, I think it was 2006, so the year before he got all those wide receivers, didn't get Moss, Welker. The leading wide receiver on the 12-4 New England Patriots that finished 7th, I think, in overall offense was Rashay Caldwell. Yeah, they were 7th in points scored, 11th in yards. So, yeah, no. If you thought that Aaron Rodgers at this stage of the game, coming off back-to-back MVP seasons, could rise the talent levels around him of players like Alan Lazard, Bob Tonyan, Randall Cobb, who, got Got 99 yards, I think, on Sunday. He hasn't had a 100-yard receiving game for the Packers since 2019. Romeo Doubs is a rookie. He's flashed. Christian Watson, they just want to turn him into a jet sweeper. This is not a good team. And I'm not saying it's because they paid Rodgers. It's because they just thought Rodgers could fix everything. And he can't.
Agreed. New York Football Giants, Neil. Speaking of smoke and mirrors,
the hat goes off to how well they are, how well coached they are, and how much chicken salad Brian Dable is getting out of chicken shit. But they're not. Watching them on offense is painful at times because again, he's throwing to the finest collection of Costco night shift managers I've ever seen assembled. Or they're throwing it to giving it to Saquon Barkley, which isn't a bad strategy at the moment. But what they are doing is they are executing the game plan of their head coach, and it's working almost perfectly. But I cannot, in my heart of hearts, say they're a good team despite the 4-1 record.
When we talk a lot in the NFL, we always seem to talk about coaches who don't make the most of their talent on their team. Brian Dable and his coaching staff are wringing out every last drop of ability from the New York Giants, especially on offense, to do enough to win games. What I find most amazing is it's very rare that you've got a car and you're just I'm just going to rag this round and smash it into bits and who cares? I've only got it for another year. I know I'm not going to make any money on it, so I'm just going to scrap it at the end of the year. That's what they're doing with Daniel Jones. There's just complete and utter reckless abandon for that. It's just well, we're going to have him this year and then we're done with him, right? So we're just going to do whatever we want. Yeah, have a run, Dan. Go have a run, son. Drop your shoulder. Get in there. Yeah, slide if you need to, but if you don't want to, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? It's just whoa, Daniel. They're not going to keep you. They're not here long term. This isn't a long term thing.
They're just not that into you, Dan. But the thing is, though, in his favour, and the massive things we've always said about Daniel Jones is that he has no awareness. He takes too many sacks and he fumbles. He's got one fumble all season, and that came in week 1. And his sacks, granted, are not great, but he's thrown 2 interceptions. Granted, he's only thrown 3 touchdown passes. So they're maximising his skills by showcasing the fact that he has limited.
Yep, absolutely. Final team, Neil. Las Vegas Raiders.
Poorly coached, ill-disciplined, push photographers.
They are absolutely in every game just at the point until they lose it, which makes me think that they're secretly good, but can't get out of their own way, probably due to one of the 3 things you mentioned. Probably more the first 2. I'm not sure the last one has been a problem in any of the games. Maybe, I don't know. But
we're not in the meeting room.
Not in the meeting room, no. The problem you have is everyone said, "Don't worry, Josh has learned, and it'll be fine this time." Will Josh McDaniels be the offensive coordinator of the New England Patriots in 2023?
Probably not. I don't think Mark Davis would probably love that offset language. I'm sure fully guaranteed. The problem is, again, it always comes down to this with Belichick. He teaches these coaches all they know, but he never teaches them all he knows.
Yeah, it is true, and I think they've got talent, but they've found a multitude of different ways to lose games, and that's not what you need in the NFL.
They are charging more than the Chargers charge you.
That's a special thing, although, that we won't get onto it, but just to highlight the charging that nearly took place on Sunday, Chargers Browns, That would have been one of the great Chargerings of Chargerville.
Amy Trask said, even if she worked in the front office for the Chargers and they lost that game, Staley wouldn't have been allowed back on the flight.
The thing is, I find really interesting about that, and it's not that I disagree with Amy, because she is tremendously smart and tremendously talented, is that Bill Barnwell, also tremendously smart, also tremendously talented, said, you're all effing wrong. That was clearly the right decision to make. He just picked a bad play.
I've seen some statistical models that said it was a stupid decision. I've seen some statistical models that said it was the right decision. Read the fucking room. You're the LA Chargers.
You're playing, and you're also playing Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we're not doing that yet. We're going to get on and we're going to talk Game of the Week.
Time now for the main event.
Now, I know, and you know, that when I say Game of the Week, and Neil's on the show, you think we're going to talk Eagles-Cowboys. But we're not, because it's not the best game of the week, because that's Bills-Chiefs.
Plus, I have no interest in talking about it.
And there's also the fact that we don't want to talk about Cowboys versus Eagles. We'll leave that to John Barshard and Ben Solak and Sheil Kapadria and other people who've been on our show. Evan, just a multitude of Philly aficionados.
But we have Mark Bullock. That'll do you.
Yeah, we did have Mark, and Mark is excellent. And no one wants to. Like, if you don't know what was on, like, Mark Talks Washington, I don't even think he gets paid to talk about it anymore, and he still does it, which is just psychotic. But if you don't know what kind of we're talking about, go and find Ben Standig, who writes up for Washington on The Athletic, and see his tweet, which is like, it's only effing Thursday, and he gives you a list of all the things he's had to cover. But anyway, let's get back to Bills Chiefs. How many players in Bills Chiefs, in your opinion, are fantasy relevant this week? Because this could be a shootout.
Well, the weird thing about this team is that you'd think with both teams, you'd think with both of them being offensive juggernauts with MVP caliber quarterbacks, you'd assume it would be, smoke them if you've got them. But the way that the teams have been going, in terms of pure top-level fantasy relevance, the only real players I think anyone wants would be Mahomes and Allen, Kelsey, because if you can score more fantasy points than you have receiving yards, you've done a pretty good job.
I don't know how that works, by the way. I refuse to find out. I'm not willing to find out.
Then you'd have Gabe Davis, because I think Davis has now hit that area of you're going to start him because you don't want the 3 for 150 and 2 touchdown weeks to happen when he's on your bench. So you have to live with the fact he's going to have 4 for 35 weeks occasionally. I don't know. If you're a running back in this game, I don't really want to be starting you, because I don't think either teams are that interested in establishing. So, the quarterbacks, Kelsey, Stephon Diggs, obviously. Juju Smith-Schuster, it's not happening. It's just not working. Marcus Valdes-Scantling, we're going again into... He's like their version of Gabe Davis, but he's one of those that when he has his 4 for 120 and he's on your bench, I don't care. You can live with it. So it's going to be probably a high-scoring game, but I don't think it's going to be a game dripping with fantasy goodness.
Quarterbacks are 1-4 in the first 5 weeks, so Josh Allen is number 1 with 150 points. Patrick Mahomes, 125 points. There's a running back, Neil, of one of these two teams in the top 10 in half PPR. That is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's got 74 points.
Okay. Speaking of things that we don't know if they're good or not.
No, I know, right? Yeah, absolutely, like that, undeniable. If I look at the wide receivers, the first wide receiver on the list is Gabe Dave, who's wide receiver 25. So as you said, it's interesting that. I mean, you'd expect Stephon Diggs to be higher. Obviously, Travis Kelce's number 1 in the tight end room. He's tight end 1 by 20 points, which is frightening. And he's also on a podcast with his brother, stealing listeners from us, I assume. Do you expect this to be a shootout, Neil?
Absolutely. can't imagine. I think it's a question of both defensive coordinators basically getting told, just try and stop them once. Well, other than, we think we can shut them down. You can't. Neither of you can. Interestingly, both defensive play callers, have ties to the Eagles, and Andy Reid in particular. Obviously, Spags was with the Eagles when Reid was there. He was assistant with Jim Johnson, and Sean McDermott took over from Jim Johnson as defensive coordinator. So I think both of them are aware what Andy Reid wants to do. So I think, Reid, as has always been happy. Look, I'll score points, defense make a stop, and we'll score one. We'll get one more drive in than them. So I think it will be a shootout. But as I say, I think the fantasy scoring will be fairly concentrated, so we don't have to worry about a Sky Moore or an Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, I think it's a shootout. What Buffalo need to remember is that you want the ball last, and last means there's 0.0 seconds on the clock. 13 seconds still means there's time. Who wins, Neil?
I'm going to say the Chiefs, because I like the way that they're playing. I still think the Bills are making mistakes that other teams aren't fully capitalising on. I think the opportunistic nature of the Chiefs means they will. And I just think that I hope we never get to a stage where we become jaded by the extraordinary things that Patrick Mahomes can do. Because he's doing one every game this season, but it doesn't seem to be getting the same attention that it used to. So, while I love Josh Allen, especially, Blue Smarty Josh, I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Chiefs too. They're at home, and that's kind of where we are with it. That's an issue in the old home field advantage stakes, but yeah, I'm going to take the Chiefs too. Final thing on the main events, Neil.
Time now for the main event.
There are bad teams, and obviously we fired Matt Rule, and the question then becomes, do you fire sale the team to get some collateral for the new coach? But I was also thinking there's a lot of other bad teams, and there's good players on those bad teams, and you could move them to good teams. We did this on the Touchdown Review, but I thought it was quite a useful exercise. You're a good team, Neil.
Thank you.
What would you do with Minkah Fitzpatrick?
I'd leave him where he is. I think the way that the Steelers run, they still just think they're a player away. So I don't see them moving him. I like Minkah. He's one of those players who, when he came into the NFL, he was he can do everything, and eventually someone worked out he has to go to one position meeting. Just make him sort that out. Note to the Arizona Cardinals, you're not allowed to take hybrids anymore because you're shit at it. But no, I don't. No disrespect to him, because I think he's a wonderful player, but I don't think there's a contending team out there who thinks Minkah is what's going to put them over the top.
Where would you put DJ Moore, Neil, and do you expect the Panthers to try and move him on?
I think it'll be tough, prohibitively because of the contract he signed. If I'm the Baltimore Ravens, I'm breaking the door down for him, because I'm not saying that they need wide receiver help. Rashad Bateman is good, but again he's struggling to stay on the field. Mark Andrews is a beast, but he can't do it all. I think if you really want to maximise and see what you've got in Lamar before you decide to pay him, then put as many weapons around him as possible. Devin Duvernay's had a nice season, but come on now.
CMC, do you think he gets
Bills.
moved? Bills. It looked like some kind of ITK on Twitter. It came up with that thing. I heard a mate who saw CMC at Denny's, and that was it. We were going to Buffalo. Is that what we're saying?
Scott Fitterer came out and said, "We are not looking to trade Christian McCaffrey," which, as Andrew Brandt would tell you, is your offers suck. Make a better one. Could you imagine Christian McCaffrey on the Bills?
The funny thing about Christian McCaffrey on the Bills is they have no need for him whatsoever, and that's why it'd be perfect.
Yeah, it would kill
DJ
him
Moore
from a fantasy point of view.
DJ Moore on the Baltimore Ravens is a necessity CMC on the Bills is a luxury.
Yeah, and
You
it would
need
kill
him
him.
for the playoffs. You can ease him in. You don't need all that kind of pressure.
Yeah, and say it'd kill him from a fantasy point of view because you go down to someone who is the whole offense to a cog in a wheel, and while he'll probably chip in and be an excellent real life addition, you're not getting the RB1 anymore. So from the fantasy point of view, I hope this doesn't happen. But from I want to see super teams. I love dream teams. I want to see it happen.
Washington are crap.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. Washington are going to be crap forever. Also breaking news. When does Terry McLaurin think, F this?
Well, he should have thought of it before he signed the contract.
But he signed the contract now, so he's getting paid, and now he can say F this and get moved.
Yeah, but the team aren't going to commit cap suicide by making him sign the contract and then trade him straight away.
True. I just, you got to let a guy go. Can't blame a guy for trying. That's it with the main events. Let's get on to the fantasy portion of the show, Neil, and let's focus on Fantasy Darling.
Hello, darling.
Let's be honest, Neil. Bad week last week. 0-2. You picked Tyler Conklin as your tight end. He had 0 points. That's a loss. Don't want to make anyone's who's unaware how the game works. You also told me that the Dolphins' defense and special teams was going to destroy the New York Football Jets. The Miami Dolphins had the worst defense in fantasy in the whole league last week. They were -2 points. You're now 4-6 overall after getting yourself back to around 500. You took a dive. Who's your first pick this week in Fantasy Darling?
First pick this week is I'm going another tight end. I'm going Hayden Hurst. Over the last 2 weeks, he's the tight end 5 in PPR scoring. He's found the end zone in both weeks. He has benefited from the fact that T. Higgins has spent as much time off the field as he has on this season, and he has stepped up quite well in his absence. It's not a great matchup against the Saints. The Saints are fairly middle of the road when it comes to fantasy points allowed to tight ends, but I think Hurst is getting enough volume, and he's certainly running enough routes. He's ran the 4th most pass routes among all tight ends this season. He's getting enough that he can help you out this week, especially if, as we hit bye weeks, your tight end's on a bye this week.
How did you know? Okay, Neil, who is your second pick for Fantasy Darling?
I'm staying with defense, and I'm staying in Florida. I'm going with the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jags this season are 9th in yards allowed, 6th in turnovers forced, 6th in QB knockdowns, and 10th in QB pressures. They are playing the Colts of Indianapolis this week, and Matt Ryan is leading the NFL in several categories that you don't want to lead the NFL in. He's thrown 7 interceptions, he's taken 21 sacks, and he's fumbled 11 times. That's not great, Matthew. So I think the Jags, who are widely available, they can do a better job this week than the Dolphins did for me last week.
Let's move on. Let's get a look at Neil's fancy loser. Unlike Darlings, let's be honest, Neil nailed fancy loser last week. Pick Ezekiel Elliott, RB35. Sorry, but if you're in running back 3 zone, that makes you a loser. And Neil gets a win, 7.8 points. Neil now 3-2 overall on loser. I, for one, am not shocked that Neil is good at negativity. Neil, who's you picked this week?
I'm going to go with another running back. And again, it's someone who I've already spoken about this week. It's Joe Mixon. It's not necessarily the matchup this week why I hate him. I hate him for the fact that he's doing bugger all with all his opportunities. As I say, he's averaging 20 weighted opportunities per game. This is per player profiler, which takes into account carries and targets. So he leads all NFL running backs with weighted opportunities per game. He's averaging 3.7 yards per touch. So we can either be efficient in the face of huge volume, or we can be efficient with no volume. He's doing neither. He's killing you. He is... I don't know if I still got the screen up here. He is one of the leaders among all running backs in terms of the rushing share for their team, and he's averaging less than 4 yards a carry. I just don't know how much he can help you at the moment because all he's doing is hurt you. So if you can go to your waiver wire this week and you can get Ken Walker or Eno Benjamin for this week, I would play them over Joe Mixon.
Which is a tremendous indictment. Great stuff, Neil. Now, let's give people some fantasy predictions bound to go wrong. Last week, bad week. I decided that Caleb Huntley would get 100 yards and 2 scores. He got 8 rushes for 34 yards and a loss. Yeah, bad. That pick is nearly as bad as the officiating in that game. Nearly, but not quite. You said that Devin Duvernay would have a rushing touchdown. He had 3 rushes for 24 yards. This was actually the first time this season, although he has had one game where he did rush, it was negative. So this was the first game this season where he had positive rushing yards, and that was in the game script. However, no one cares. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. That's a loss. Neil, this week I'll let you go first.
Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen will combine for 85 or more fantasy points this week.
Woo! Checks fantasy to make sure I'm not playing either of them. I can't be playing Patrick Mahomes as he did me over last week. I'm going to go back to one of our good bad teams for my pick. I'm going to pick Ramondre Stevenson. Had a very good week last week and has kind of decided this is my party, nobody else's. He plays the Cleveland Browns this week. What you can say if you watch Chargers versus Browns is they could not stop Austin Eckler in any way, shape or form running the ball. And that's why we can talk about the kind of whether he should have gone for it or whatever. What he should have done was run the ball if he was going to go for 4th and 2. That plain and simple. Ramondre Stevenson is a top 3 running back this week and gets over 25 fantasy points.
It's Stevenson Sisson. Yeah,
it is. That this team's playing 1980 style ball, so I'll have the lead run back in said game against team that can't stop run. Please. The
issue I've got with Stevenson is, and it's an aesthetic issue, 38 to fullback's number, mate.
Yeah, but he's not slim, is he?
No, he's not.
In the olden days, he probably would be a H-back, right? You know what I mean?
I just think his body type, 34 would look better.
He's more Rigo. He's more Rigo than LT.
Yeah, he is. But 38 to fullback.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I remain unshaken on this.
That's fair. Yeah, that's the show, Neil. Where can people catch you until we're back next week?
Follow me on the Twitter at N13. My stuff is at Numberfire. It's at Rotoviz, Player Profiler, 4-4 Football, and on the Nat Coombs Show.
Touchdown Review came out Wednesday morning. Really good show. Took an hour and 40 minutes, Neil. A classic, which Matt Kelly would call a warm-up, but I called an effing long show. We spoke SEC, we talked the Texas State Fair, as Callum went there with his lovely wife to watch her Oklahoma Sooners get absolutely boat raced. We spoke to Taib. We let Thomas swear to talk about the Falcons officiating. We got Joe to talk about why he took the Jags -7.
See, I'm not a big watcher of college football, so I watched the Texas-Oklahoma game. Oklahoma, hey, you know this game started, don't you?
Well, that was what Callum was saying. His wife is from Texas, but she went to Oklahoma. Her dad, obviously, is also from Texas, but he went to Texas A&M. So that's a family that effing hates Texas, right? They went to the State Fair where the game is played because it's played in the Cotton Bowl, and the State Fair is around the outside. I wasn't really interested in that. I wanted to know what deep fried stuff Callum ate. He said he had funnel cake. Now, I don't know if you're aware of a funnel cake. It's like a donut thing. Like, it's like thin strips and it becomes top. He had funnel cake, fried chicken, funnel cake, powdered sugar, syrup. Words cannot describe how much I wanted to be in the state fair right that moment.
Yeah, I can feel my left ventricle slamming shut just as you speak those words.
But what a way to go!
Oh God, yeah. If you're going to die with your boots
just
on,
deep fried butter, Neil. You can just buy deep fried butter. Hey Texas, stop it.
Yeah. Hey Texas, your arteries are clogged.
Fantastic stuff, Neil. Great show. I'll let you go. As Neil pointed out to me and I mentioned earlier in the show, next week is the 10th anniversary since we started some form of podcasting with each other. It was actually called Waxing Lyrical then as well. I've been
so original,
yeah. I've been tasked with doing something. What that is yet is to be determined, because as most people know about me, I'm not a prepper. I like to fly by the seat of my pants, so we'll see how it goes. So enjoy yourselves this week. Much like you, I can't wait for next week to see what happens. Until then, these top guys are out.